Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you live worldwide on the iHeartRadio network, the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys from down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France, and of course Canada. You know we love Canada, Big C, but I gotta tell you, there's no one I love more than all of you good old boys down south in the land of the free, in the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south? That's so funny, Big C. Well, hopefully you have a life raft. I do want to say today is a beautiful August the 8th, 2017 in the land of the free and the home of the brave. You know, they say all is fair in love and war, Big C. We got a few little things to talk about in football and some basketball, baseball, etc. But also the way sports is marketed and some of the top athletes. So I want to get into it with you, Big C. First of all, I do want to say in the NFL, Anquan Boldin signed with Buffalo. We talk about players that are older and still able to contribute to the game in a big way. He has over 13,780 yards, Big C, in his career. He's 36 years old. Any thought of Anquan Boldin slowing down, Big C?
Recognizes coverage when he comes off the ball, and he'll automatically move in and become Buffalo's number 2 receiver.
Yeah.
Sammy Watkins has not gotten to the pinnacle that was expected of him 3 years ago when he was taken as the Bills' number 1 draft pick. But Anquan Boldin has done it consistently over the years, Charlton, starting with Arizona, moving on to San Francisco, and then to Detroit.
Yeah.
And every place that he has gone, he has helped that team get to the playoffs, Charlton. You think about the run that San Francisco had while he was there. Detroit made the playoffs even while he was in Detroit.
Yeah.
Now he's moving on to Buffalo. They need that stabilizer in that offense. They have Shady McCoy. You know, there's some question marks about what they're going to do at quarterback, but this was sure up their receiving core with Anquan Boldin, Charlton.
Yeah, I remember him when he came over to the 49ers, really helped them. He was great when he played in Arizona, also great when he played in Baltimore. He's a guy that's gotten around the league, but always has good hands. Not the fastest guy. Reminds me a lot of Jerry Rice. May not be the fastest guy, but he sure is someone that can make plays. Also, Big C, going down the line for Wednesday night's kickoff, we have Carolina at Houston. That game's in Carolina. They're a 3-point favorite over Houston. Not that it really matters, because this is when they test out the guys on their team to see who's going to make it on their team. And before I get your thoughts on that, I want to say this segment sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. So Carolina at home versus Houston. We're not going to see much of Cam Newton, and we're not going to see a lot of the starting players anyway. Big C, your thoughts on these games in preseason?
Well, Charlton, this is always a tune-up for unproven rookies and backup players that you've had on the rosters. You know, the sentiment around professional football for decades has been there's too many preseason games.
Yeah.
These games are an economic base for the owners. They don't benefit the players. Because when you look at the Hall of Fame game a couple nights ago with Dallas and Carolina playing each other, you didn't know 8 players that were out there on the field.
Yeah.
Okay? So make that Arizona. But, you know, this is a point that, you know, they feel that the fans want the game. We saw the poor attendance at the Hall of Fame game, and a lot of that had to do being played on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
But now we have games that are going to be kicking off on a Wednesday night. How much better is that going to be for our fans here, John? The people have to get up and go to work the games
Yeah.
are kicking off at 8 o'clock. They're not ending to 11:30. The meaningless fans are paying premium price for the tickets for players that they don't recognize and may not see in 4 weeks. So this is a point that the NFL has to understand, that these meaningless games also, Charlton, cost players physically.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be injuries throughout the preseason in the NFL. There's going to be players that go on IR, and it's not necessitated. But it's what the history of the game has always been to find out who can play. But the game is not what it was, Charlton, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Players come to training camp prepared. They don't come to training camp anymore to get get ready to play football. They come to training camp ready to play games. You know, with all the electronics that the players have now, that they have game film year-round.
Yeah.
Most players have a workout facility in their own home, especially if you're a veteran player. You have your own in-home gym. If not, you have a personal trainer away from your home that will keep you in condition year-round.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is a little overzealous playing 4 preseason games now.
Yeah.
At this day and age of pro football, especially with the physicality of the game and players, Shelton.
Yeah, and when you think about that too, think about the body, the human body, and when it really is a testament to how well training and dieting and what you put in your body can matter. Because I would just assume, and I may not be assuming correctly, Big C. You know that when they say you assume, you make something out of yourself. Start with a, you know. But I look at Woolfolk. Obviously, linemen, they want them big, they want them heavy. But here's a guy that just retired yesterday, and then you look across the line and you say Anquan Bolden, and Anquan Bolden, Tom Brady, Brett Favre, a lot of guys, Warren Moon, guys that played. You had James Harris for the Steelers. These guys are doing something different in the weight room and how they eat. And we say that football players' lifetimes are usually over by about 30. It seems to be there are several players, they don't even consider retiring until they hit the 40s. Big C, your thoughts?
Nutritional development and physical development of players, Charlton, now, you can push back for all the time as far as the game if you can avoid the injuries.
Yeah.
And injuries have always been the most catastrophic part of ending players' careers, Charlton. And we've seen the mass retirement of a lot of players in the past 2 years, especially after CTE studies have started coming out. We see linebackers and running backs retiring from the game, Charlton, because there's a constant concussion episode every play.
Yeah.
They're in the game and banging helmets. So these players are starting to look at their long-term objective. You know, when you have a couple $1 million in the bank, Charlton, and you haven't gone out and lived crazy,
yeah.
money, you can survive.
Yeah.
And that's what these players understand. Okay, I can go out and make another $4 million, but, you know, will I risk injury? Will I risk, you know, multiple concussions?
Yeah.
Will I may shorten my lifespan or my cognitive skills within the next 5 to 10 years, Charlton? This is what players are becoming aware of. You know, football players are very, very, very intelligent.
Yeah.
They were known for decades as the dumb jock. But they never buy tickets, so they're not that dumb. You have to realize it from that perspective.
Yeah,
so
that's
you
funny.
realize who's the most intelligent of the two, plus they're making millions of dollars a day, each year nowadays, Charlton.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, Big C. But especially when you don't need the money, it's always a lot easier to stay away from the game and not get pulled in by it. I remember someone was asking Steve Smith. It was on the NFL Network, and he was up in Buffalo. I think it was Shady McCoy that was saying, "I want a jersey," and Steve Smith unveiled a jersey for he and his son. And he said, "Man, you still look good. You look like you can still play." And Steve said, "Well, I got a family life now, and I want to spend more time doing that." We'll see if he becomes a Jay Cutler when the season rolls around, Big C. I think a lot of guys might come out of retirement for Cutler. And just speaking of Cutler, Miami Dolphins playing Atlanta. That game is going to be down in Miami. Obviously, too soon for Cutler to play, but you and I were saying Friday the Dolphins would sign him, and they signed him over the weekend. I don't know if they listened to you or not, Big C, but just your thoughts on the Dolphins in Atlanta. Atlanta's trying to rebound from kind of an inexplicable loss in the Super Bowl, and Miami's just trying to find themselves, but they seem to want to find themselves with a CB quarterback, Big C. Your thoughts?
Anybody who swallows a chicken bone.
Yeah.
If it wasn't inexplicable,
Yeah.
they choked on a chicken bone. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I look at this scenario with the Dolphins and the Falcons. The Falcons really won't play many frontline players in the game because they have nothing to prove, and you look at the Dolphins. They signed Jay Cutler, who in his press conference stated, "Hey, I really can care about this."
Isn't that something? Isn't that crazy?
He told the Miami faithful right off the bat, "Hey, I'm not here to be a hero.
Yeah.
I'm just here to get $10 million. They offer me $10 million.
Yeah.
This guy didn't care about playing football when he was a starter with other teams.
No.
He's played 11 seasons in the NFL, Charlton. 11 seasons. 8 of those seasons, Charlton, have been sub 500. So how can you say this guy is the best quarterback out there available that you can go get? You look at the Bears fans, they're happy. And
Yeah.
they're unhappy at the same time. Because Jay Cutler's getting $10 million from Miami.
Yeah.
They're paying Mike Glennon between $14 and $17 million this
Yeah.
year, who hadn't played in 3 years. years.
Yeah.
So basically, both of those quarterbacks are the same. Neither one of them played in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Present productivity. But Mike Glennon, Charlton, is making more money than Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You think about that. You've been holding a clipboard for the last 2 years behind Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
And the Chicago Bears felt that you were more valuable economically than Tom Brady, who has won 5 Super Bowls, and you haven't won 5 games as a starter in the NFL.
Yeah.
So when you look at this is what you call white privilege in the NFL.
Yeah.
It honestly is. Because you will pay a white quarterback stupid money. When you think about the highest 3 salaries in the NFL this year, Charlton.
Yeah.
Neither one of those quarterbacks made the playoffs last year, okay?
Yeah.
Neither one of them. Joe Flacco will be number 1 on the salary hit, the cap hit. Okay?
Yeah.
Number 1. He didn't make the playoffs, and yet he may miss the first 4 or 5 games of the season.
That's crazy.
That's ridiculous, Charlton. When you think about that kind of money. You think about Kirk Cousins. He's number 3 on the list, Charlton. He didn't make the playoffs.
Wow.
And so how do you justify paying this type of money to quarterbacks who don't make the playoffs and don't make a team better? Carson Palmer in Arizona is number 2.
Yeah.
We know what the Cardinals did. They stuck up the joint last year.
Yeah.
So you got the top 3 paid quarterbacks in the NFL. Kirk Cousins, Carson Palmer, Joe Flacco. Neither of the 3 made the playoffs, but they're saying the teams are great. And yet you got guys, African-American quarterbacks, who don't make nearly that type of money, who run under scrutiny all the time.
Yeah, and obviously Prescott was one of them that's rolling the plate. Obviously a rookie's going to get that. I think the thing that happened with Jay Cutler, it will allow a lot of, Brett Favre, I hear he's getting in shape again, Big C, for guys that yeah.
At least I know I have a competitor. I have a guy who enjoys the game of football. When I looked at Jay Cutler at his press conference, Charlton, I didn't know if he was ready to fall asleep or they had a stick behind his back propping him up.
Yeah.
Because he looked like he could care less. He's like, hey, what fool wouldn't take $10 million to give it to him? Because he said, I know I was stupid, but I'm not stupid, okay?
Yeah.
I know I look stupid, but I'm not stupid. They gave me $10 million free dollars.
Yeah.
And the incentive is to make another $3 million on top of that. I had to be the dumbest guy in the room. Who else is in here?
And then the funny thing is, he's making statements that he doesn't want to be the savior. He just wants to fit in. Well, he was already fitting in when he wasn't on the team. And I think you'll see guys like Romo having someone's going to test the wall. Anything not to hire Colin Kaepernick. They might even get Terry Bradshaw to warm up for some team if they have another quarterback issue. But throughout the season, half of those guys are going to get hurt. And the guys who start the season as a starter will not be the starter throughout the entire season. At least half the players, if the trend continues over the last several seasons, Big C. The Buffalo Bills, and they're playing Minnesota. They're at home, a 1-point favorite. Obviously, they have Bolden. Again, I don't think they're going to really figure out who they're going to start. It's almost like who do you cut, and you put players in there that are going to be trying out for someone else outside of the teams you're with. Just your thoughts on Buffalo and then Minnesota, what they did in the offseason. I think Minnesota might be a pretty decent team. Your thoughts, Big C?
You got 2 teams that are going to be testing themselves at quarterback. You got Bridgewater coming back after that devastating knee injury, who was back in training camp this year with Minnesota.
Yeah.
And trying to prove himself to see if he can regain his starting position from Sam Bradford, who set an NFL percentage passing record for the season last year, although the Vikings only went 8-8 behind Bradford. They have a great young running back in Dalvin Cook out of Florida State. They got in the second round.
Yeah.
Who's going to prove the second version of Adrian Peterson in Minnesota. You look at Buffalo, they're led by Shady McCoy. You talk about Bolden coming in, but Tyrod Taylor also had the off-season surgery.
Yeah.
That, going to be a question mark. They don't have a proven backup in Buffalo. They started E.J. Manuel the last game of the season, number 1 draft pick from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But, the Buffalo is a team that's got to stabilize themselves at quarterback. They've had a solid defense over the past couple of years. They've had some inconsistencies on offense. Shady McCoy, you got to run the offense.
Oh, yeah.
One of the most dynamic running backs in the entire NFL, Charlton.
Yeah, Big C, I think you're very right about that. Obviously, when the weather gets cold up in Buffalo, it may slow him down some because he's a fast guy, he's a speedy guy, but definitely hard to hit. This is a game that would be intriguing if it were week 1 in the NFL. You have the Baltimore Ravens at home versus Washington. We know Cousins and his contract issues at Washington. And then Baltimore's so dumb that they don't know how to look at tape of their last Super Bowl. They have a guy that ran all over them in the Super Bowl, and he's out there for them. And they're saying, well, We want someone who wasn't near the Super Bowl, or at least on the playing surface. We want someone who bought a ticket, Big C. Just your thoughts on Baltimore and Washington. And the thing about Baltimore, with the way they play defense and their offense, could you imagine, if you look at the QBR rating, the touchdown interception ratio, if you look at Kaepernick, he was better than Flacco. If you can look behind that offensive line and their defense, if you have a running back, a quarterback that can run and put pressure on the defense, that makes them an instant playoff team. But they're so foolish, they don't even see that. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Baltimore is another one of those teams, Charlton, in the rebuilding mode. They have no receiving core. That's their biggest problem right now, is that they have an unproven receiving core. They're going to start Ryan Mallett at quarterback.
He can't run.
He's been more of a journeyman than a greyhound.
Yeah, he can't run. Yeah.
So, this is a guy that can stay anywhere.
Yeah.
When he pulls up to a team, he don't even turn off his car.
Yeah.
So this is what they're starting to see. Ryan Mallett's better than Colin Kaepernick. Ryan Mallett was in Houston last year. I think he lasted about 3 games.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
So here's a guy, New England drafted him several years ago, and all he's been is on the move since then. He hasn't unpacked a suitcase.
Yeah.
But, Baltimore feels that he's the owner of the team, not Baltimore, the owner feels that he's their best option behind Joe Flacco until he comes back. They have no receiving core, so who is Mallett going to throw to?
They need a guy who can run. Yeah.
He hasn't proven that he can hit the open receivers yet, Charlton, in game action. Everybody looks great in practice. The led, by the defense vicariously over the past couple of years, Charlton.
Yeah.
But that defense is not going to be playing in this game. There's going to be a lot of young upstarts trying to prove that they can be backups against those starters. Terrell Suggs, you're not going to see him in a game like this,
No.
Charlton. You're not going to risk injury to him. So this is a game that has intrigue but no intrigue because Joe Flacco, that's the intrigue in Baltimore. How long will he be out?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And even when he comes back in, he's not mobile. He can't run. He's not going to help them having a weak receiving core. I want to ask you this question. I recall back in the day, Jerry Jones gave his acceptance speech for the Hall of Fame, and he also didn't mention this part, how when he would not sign Emmitt Smith, who helped them win Super Bowls, they went 0-2, and the Cowboys tore up the locker room down there in Texas. And then Jerry Jones had a press conference and said, we come to a conclusion that we do want to have Emmitt Smith in the backfield again. At what point will the good old boys up in Baltimore start tearing up the locker room saying you're not giving us the best chance to win? And you have guys putting their careers on the line when they know the coaches and the owners don't agree on how to win. I mean, trust the coaching staff. If they want someone, whether it's Kaepernick or whoever, bring them in. But we know how long will the players put up with an owner who's intentionally trying to lose games, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the players realize that after the second game of the season that you're 0-2. You don't have to get 0-4 in the NFL to realize that you have a minimal chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah.
When you start out 0-2, your chances have become a lot less of making the playoffs. And Baltimore is one of those teams that can start the season 0-2, Charlton. Under Joe Flacco, you were a sub-500 team.
Yeah.
Former all-pro quarterback. Now you have a guy, like I said, who has more stops than the Greyhound bus.
Yeah.
Starting the season for you.
Yeah.
And so how do you expect to be better? And you don't have a receiver core. Your top receiver from last year retired, Steve Smith Sr. He's gone.
Yeah.
He's no longer there to help this young receiver core. Todd Heap is no longer around, in Baltimore.
Yeah.
So this receiving core has been decimated. You went running back by committee. The offensive line, Eugene Moreau left you at offensive tackle. You also lost a guard. So you're rebuilding offensively.
Yeah.
And so whoever you put back there at quarterback is a new face with a lot of new faces around him.
Yeah.
This is not an organization that you want to have a journeyman in trying to run the ship, Charles.
Yeah.
So Baltimore is one of those teams that potentially will end up 0-2,
Yeah.
maybe even 0-4 to start the season.
That's a good point, Big C. They need a quarterback who can keep things active. New England playing Jacksonville, 5-point favorite. Obviously, Brady won't see a snap. If they do, let him snap the ball. It might be one series, Big C. Jacksonville, just a team that's been struggling throughout the years, but they seem to have a little bit better running game. Your thoughts on that game, Big C?
Well, it all goes through great quarters, Charlton, regardless of who they put in the backfield.
Yeah.
It's Yeldon, Fournette. It doesn't make a difference. When you have a quarterback who can't find his open receivers consistently, Charlton, that's where the problem exists.
Yeah.
You have a running back who will be burned out in 2 to 3 years. You're talking about giving him the ball all the time, and that's what the new head coach Maroney is talking about.
To wear him out.
Running him 70% of the plays.
Yeah.
That means his career will be over in 2 to 3 years. He may make it to his pension.
Yeah.
But, you
Yeah.
has not delivered, Charlton. What does it take to figure out that a quarterback is not getting it done? You know, when he's played 5 years in the league, Charlton,
Yeah.
and he has not won 25, 28 games, that something has to, click in management mind that maybe this is not the guy. It's time to cut bait and fish elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because there's too many young quarterbacks out there, Charlton, with potential. That's what Blake Bortles has, is potential, but he doesn't have the savvy to hone that potential to become a quality NFL quarterback, Charlton.
Bixie, that's a very good point. I want to say sports is a billion-dollar industry. Boys and girls sports is the foundation to that billion-dollar industry. You need athletic insurance. We go through Ben and Mark. They work with Big C Sports. They've been around for half a century. They cover pro athletes, collegiate athletes, even your high school and mom and pop players. If you need insurance, reach out to them. Let them know that Big C Sports sent you. Big C, I want to touch on a few more things in the NFL, and then I want to end with something that I don't think is a controversy, but no one can stop talking about it. I just want to get your thoughts on Denver and then Chicago. Denver is a favorite over Chicago. I don't even know why they have a point spread against preseason outside of your friends down there in the great state of Las Vegas, Nevada, Big C.
Denver and Chicago, this is a scenario. Hey, wasn't Jay Cutler in Denver also figured out something?
Yeah.
He wasn't working around even a quarterback.
Shame on Chicago. Shame on those Bears.
Shame on Denver.
Yeah.
For realizing, let's get rid of him and get something for him.
Yeah.
Denver's one of those scenarios where they drafted Paxton Lynch last year and expected him to be able to establish himself by year 2 as a starting quarterback. He has not been able to push 7th round draft pick.
Yeah.
In Simeon. Simeon is a proven starter in Denver. Paxton Lynch, came out of an offensive system in college in Memphis that just wasn't conducive to the NFL style. Always being in the shotgun. And when you're in the shotgun, you don't read defenses. You just sit there and throw it to the open man.
Yep.
That's not reading defenses. And so that pre-snap count is a difficult thing for him being under center in the NFL.
Yeah.
Chicago's in the same boat, Charlton. You got Mike Glennon, the $17 million man that makes more money than Tom Brady.
Yep.
And hasn't started the game in over 2 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
You got Mike Trubisky, the first quarterback taken in the draft out of North Carolina, who played a total of 14 college games, Charlton.
Yeah.
So you look at this quandary that the Bears are in offensively. You got 2 quarterbacks with no NFL experience.
Yeah.
Realistically, no NFL experience. Neither one of them have mobility, Charlton. This is a team that they didn't upgrade from Jay Cutler.
No.
They stayed Jay Cutler.
Yeah, that's funny.
This is a hapless team for the Bears fans once again.
Yeah, that's very true, Big C. And then you got Green Bay, Philadelphia, Cleveland, New Orleans. Obviously, it's preseason football, but I want to touch on something in the final 8 minutes of the program, Big C. It's been all over the country, and obviously, we started back in last year talking about sports and Hollywood and politics. It's all the same. It's very competitive. With a great Spike Lee from He Got Game, Malcolm X, She Gotta Have It, all the great movies that Spike Lee's put together. Mo Better Blues from back in the day. He's talking about having some type of, a rally at the NFL headquarters August 23rd if Kaepernick is continued to be blackballed by the all-white ownership of the great NFL, the National Football League. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, you can't say anything but call it what it is. He is being blackballed by the owners of the NFL because he brought public attention to the ineptitude as far as the caring about society.
Yeah.
That's what he did, and that's what they're appalled about. They're not appalled about his play.
No.
They're not appalled about his stance. They're appalled about him bringing attention to them.
Yeah.
Because they didn't back him as a player. They didn't back him as a member of the institution saying that there was an injustice in America because they never see injustice, Charlton.
Yeah.
They never see that with their family members. And it goes back to Robert Irsay, the owner of the coach who was caught 3 years ago with $27,000 of oxycontin, $22,000 cash.
Yeah.
Driving, inebriated in his car.
Yeah.
Under the influence. And all he got was a slap on the hand from the Indiana State.
Because that was considered okay.
Judicial system.
Yeah.
And the NFL. NFL said, well, he can't be around the team for 6 months.
Yeah.
How do you know where he was? You had police watching him all the time? No, you didn't. He did what he wanted to do, Charlton. He just didn't sit in his luxury box.
Yeah.
He could sit in another one at the game. He just didn't know which one he was in. So the NFL did nothing. He should have been suspended from the league for 2 years.
Yeah.
Just like you would have done a player.
Yeah.
Don't suspend him during the off season, half the off season, and half, 3 months of the season.
Yeah.
But, there's a different path that you give these people. If you had caught a player, an African-American player, Pete Rozelle would have suspended him for over a year
Yeah.
out of the NFL with that same incident, Charlton. So when we look at how this plays out,
Yeah.
Roger Goodell does not stand up and say, this is true, this is not true about Colin Kaepernick being blackballed, then he's a facilitator of what's going on, Charlton, which he's been the whole time.
Yeah, and
Roger Goodell's justice in the NFL has been black and white of how he has bailed it out.
Yeah.
When you look at what has happened to players. But this is so obvious, even white America recognizes what's going on now with Colin Kaepernick. When you sign drunk, sleepy quarterbacks
yeah,
and saying that they're a better option than Colin Kaepernick, people say, I go back to statements that were made the past couple of months. People questioning, is Colin Kaepernick wanting to play football? Does he care about football? Hell, Jay Cutler walked in front of him. I don't give a damn.
he said he don't care.
I don't give a damn. You can give me $10 million and I don't care whether I play, and I don't care if I get any better than what I've been. But Colin Kaepernick is questioned, does he care about football? And Jay Cutler told you straight up, I don't give a damn about football.
Big C.
Just give me the $10 million.
Big C, I think here you'll see this season Jay Cutler will not start every game for the Miami Dolphins. He's no fool. If someone's going to give you $10 million for being asleep, and even saying you don't want to play, and they're going to write you the check anyway, and it can go up to $13 million.
Look at what Michael Vick ran under a couple years ago, and Michael Vick's just as much of a better hole as the rest of these guys.
Yeah.
From his comments that he made when he was with the Jets. And he said, well, I didn't even study the game plan during the week. I don't expect to play.
Yeah.
Okay? And that doesn't bring him in as a spokesperson against Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Michael Vick said, I didn't even know about the game plan. So I don't care
Yeah.
about playing.
Yeah.
But they don't pay him anyway. They didn't cut him.
Yeah.
They're going to bring him in to blast Colin Kaepernick. And then you sign Jay Cutler, and in his first press conference, he said, I ain't in shape, don't care about it.
Yeah.
I got $13 million from these stupid Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
I had in my NFL career, I've had 3 winning seasons.
Yeah.
I believe Colin Kaepernick has had that many, okay?
Yeah.
Okay?
Big-
Super Bowl with NFC championship. Jay Cutler can't even get out the parking lot.
Yeah.
And they're going to give him $10 million.
I think they should really consider drug testing some of the owners of these teams, because they always want to drug test an athlete. They never look at how they're going to do the same thing to an owner. I want to bring this thought up too. I think back to the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and I think of Rosa Parks and not giving up her seat on the bus. And so many people in mainstream said, what are they complaining about? What are they complaining about? They should just get along with everybody else. But I think you're right. And I think and white America doesn't understand what it means to be segregated and not treated equally when it comes to the lending institutions, when it comes to media, when it comes to employment, and especially when it comes to the criminal justice system. A lot of them are, it's a privatized institution, the criminal justice system. So a lot of people buy stock in companies that incarcerate black men. They don't want to see less people incarcerated. As Trump said, rough them up when you lock them up. Rough them up. Don't make sure you give them their civil rights. I just want to ask you this question in the final few minutes, Big C. It always took all people to create equality. What's the role in the white athlete that's been considered the paragon of virtue, especially in the quarterback position? If they see an injustice against spousal abuse, they have athletes speak out, black and white. They say no hitting women. They had guys crying in the commercial. Remember that garbage? And now guys beat women up anyway, and they still play. What's the white guys? If it makes any sense to say this, what's their role in trying to help bring about some type of racial equality for their teammates? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Jonathan, let me take the mentality of the white ownership and management in the NFL. It's just like in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
You see black starters in Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
Especially at a place like Boston. But you don't see any black utility players sitting on the bench. They would rather pay a white guy to sit on the bench and collect their paycheck than a black guy to sit on the bench and collect their paycheck because he's like taking care of family.
Yeah.
Okay? You think about every white quarterback that was signed here this past offseason, Charlton, and even signed up to this past weekend with Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
Every one of those quarterbacks was cut by their former team, Charlton.
Yeah,
They
everyone.
were deemed by their former team not to be talented enough to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have kept them. But that's what I don't get. If you're deemed not to be talented enough to play with your former team and get cut, how does a team that signed you deem that you're talented enough to become a starter? And you were a backup with that team, second or third string.
Yeah.
But this is the mindset of the ownership in the NFL. I can't justify paying a black man $4 to $5 million for sitting on the bench holding a clipboard.
Yeah.
But I can justify paying 32 white guys to do the same thing, though.
Big C.
That's the mindset of the NFL management and ownership, is that I can justify paying a white kid $3, $4, $5 million
Yeah.
to use a pencil, all right?
Yeah.
Not throw a football, to use a pencil and a piece of paper, what your kids learn in grammar school.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. But I can't justify making a black man very comfortable with that type of salary doing that same job, because he should be laboring, playing a position of skill and making my team better.
Let me ask you this question, Big C. You know how the NBA, you had the people came out, I think LeBron James, and there was a couple others. There was Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul.
Anthony, Chris Paul.
Yeah, Carmelo Anthony.
Guys have guaranteed contracts, y'all. It's
Yeah.
such a different mindset.
Yeah.
They can go out and say what they want to say. An NBA owner is not going to cut them.
Yeah.
Where in the NFL, what the NFL owners have done, Charlton, is that they've served notice to the rest of the black players in the NFL, just like during slavery.
Yeah.
If a slave ran away, they beat him, cut off the foot, cut off a hand.
Yeah.
That's what they did. This is what they have done to Colin Kaepernick. He's a slave who left the plantation, who had thoughts. You know, they didn't want slaves to read. Colin Kaepernick read his rights to the American public, is what he did. And the owners were embarrassed by that he went out and said what they would not say because they're part of the Race Network.
Yeah.
So they cut off Colin Kaepernick's livelihood. That's the same as what they did to slaves.
As an example.
Cutting off a foot, cutting off an arm, a hand. They did that to Colin Kaepernick wholeheartedly. They said, what you're trying to do is rattle up the rest of the slaves. You're trying to get these guys to stand on their own. We don't want that.
Let me ask you this question, Big C. If, and I'm just going to say it's a hypothetical question, African Americans make up about 75% of the NFL. Last time I tried, when you drive a car that has 4 tires, if 3 are on the flat, it won't go very well. If the black consciousness was smart enough to say, you know what, if you discriminate against one, you discriminate against all. If the black American athlete, especially, we've seen it before, if they were to say, we're going to strike, we're not going to play the first 2 weeks until you at least address racial discrimination in the NFL. It would cripple the NFL, and you would have people jumping on boats and cars to say, how can we fix this? The same way Jerry Jones turned around when he didn't sign Emmitt Smith and the Cowboys tore up the locker room. He was signed by week 3, Big C. Would that ever happen, or do the NFL owners think that black athletes too stupid to do that, Big C? Your thoughts?
John, there is no longer a social conscience in America as far as from African Americans and unity. It is not. We have little supplanting protests periodically.
Yeah.
But there is no unity like we had with the African American community out in the 40s, 50s,
Yeah.
60s in America.
Yeah.
When Martin Luther King died, Jonathan, that ended that unity in America, because there's no longer someone who would say, as an individual, I'm going to take the cause up.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in and have this whole scenario strict
Yeah.
against you. Think about when he went to Memphis and, you know, had the bus boycott.
Yeah.
Because they did not want to pay wages to the sanitation workers.
Yeah.
This is what black unity did decades ago in America. It no longer exists because white America has created too many black millionaires.
Yeah.
And those black millionaires who are still, you know, depend on that white billionaire to keep them a millionaire is not going to lose that.
Yeah.
They're not going to say, well, you know, I'm comfortable how I am. You know, that's just one of us gone.
Yeah.
You know, that's even the whole signature of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
There's not enough blacks who are concerned about Black Lives Matter. You can't put it all on the
yeah.
system in America, Charles.
Yeah.
You can't put it all on the police. As long as blacks are killing each other, you can't blame the police because they're doing a very tough job. I know that a lot of the situations that we've seen on camera are wrong and unjustified. But until all of America says all lives matter, until black people say Black Lives Matter to the blacks that are killing blacks, you can't expect for blacks to stand up for Colin Kaepernick in the NFL. So.
That's a very good point, Big C. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bondini Brown. He was Ollie's right-hand man. He had a saying called Rumble, young man rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Jonathan, you know, we're picking off this preseason football, but I tell you last night, we talked about it in yesterday's show, Mike Trout. Mike Trout last night reaches 1,000 hits in Major League Baseball. Jonathan.
Wow.
And Mike Trout, you know, missed some good games, and people are wondering, should he be in the MVP hunt, Jonathan?
Yeah.
You know, Josh Hamilton won the MVP with the Texas Rangers some years back in 29 games. But, you know, Mike Trout last night went into the 1,000 hit club.
Amazing. Yeah.
He hit a home run to make it into that elite club, Jonathan. And as the youngest player in baseball to do that,
Well, Big C, that's very well said, and also well said every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide on iHeartRadio. Follow Big C Sports Network, the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good up boys from down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any reason for domestic violence. If you know anyone in trouble, call 911 so they don't have to deal with that garbage on their own. And as we tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.